Malaysia just lit the fuse on a trade war that has Washington absolutely furious. Here's what happened. While other nations bowed to Trump's demands, Malaysia became the first country on earth to publicly declare its U.S. trade agreement null and void. Trade Minister Johari Abdul Ghani made the explosive announcement on March 15, 2026, stating flatly, "It is not on hold, it is no longer there, it's null and void." Why is America so angry? To understand the outrage sweeping across the United States, you have to look beyond the headlines and into the heart of a deal that was supposed to reshape the economic relationship between two nations. This isn't just about dollars and cents, it's about pride, politics, and the promise of a new era that now seems to be slipping away. The mood in Washington is tense, with politicians, business leaders, and everyday Americans all asking the same question: how could something so big fall apart so quickly? Well, it's because the deal Malaysia just torched was massive. We're not talking about a minor trade agreement or a symbolic gesture. This was a once-in-a-generation pact, hammered out over months of negotiations, late-night phone calls, and high-stakes meetings in both Kuala Lumpur and Washington. The agreement was hailed as a breakthrough, a sign that two very different countries could find common ground in a world increasingly defined by competition and conflict. For the United States, it was a chance to open new markets, create jobs, and show the world that American leadership still mattered. For Malaysia, it was an opportunity to modernize its economy, attract investment, and secure a place at the table with the world's biggest players. The scale of the deal was almost unprecedented. Negotiators on both sides worked tirelessly, poring over thousands of pages of legal documents, debating every clause and fighting for every advantage. The stakes were enormous, not just for the governments involved, but for millions of workers, investors, and families whose livelihoods depended on the outcome. The world watched as the two sides inched closer to an agreement, with news outlets providing breathless updates and analysts speculating about what it would mean for the global economy. Signed in October 2025, Malaysia had agreed to spend $240 billion on American goods. That's right, $240 billion. Imagine the impact. American factories humming with new orders, ports bustling with activity, and workers across the country benefiting from a surge in demand. This wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet, it was a lifeline for industries that had been struggling to compete in a rapidly changing world. For Malaysia, it meant access to cutting-edge technology, advanced machinery, and the chance to leapfrog into the future. And that was only half the story. Malaysia also pledged to invest a staggering $700 billion in U.S. projects. Think about that for a moment. $700 billion flowing into American infrastructure, technology, and innovation. It was a shot in the arm for the U.S. economy, promising new jobs, revitalized cities, and a wave of optimism that spread from Wall Street to Main Street. For American companies, it meant new partnerships, expanded operations, and the chance to lead in industries of the future. For Malaysia, it was a strategic move to diversify its investments and build lasting ties with the world's largest economy. But perhaps the most dramatic part of the deal was its impact on tariffs. Under the agreement, Malaysia would see Trump's punishing tariffs slashed from a crippling 47% down to a much more manageable 19%. For exporters on both sides, this was a game changer. Suddenly, American goods became more affordable in Malaysia, and Malaysian products could compete fairly in the U.S. market. It was a win-win, or so it seemed. The reduction in tariffs was supposed to usher in a new era of cooperation, prosperity, and mutual respect. The announcement sent shockwaves through both countries. In the U.S., factory workers cheered the prospect of new orders, while investors scrambled to position themselves for the coming boom. In Malaysia, business leaders celebrated the chance to expand into the American market, and government officials touted the deal as a triumph of diplomacy and vision. Economists on both sides predicted a surge in trade, investment, and innovation that would benefit millions. Washington saw this as a major victory. The mood in the capital was jubilant, with officials lining up to take credit for what they called a historic achievement. The press conference announcing the deal was filled with smiles, handshakes, and bold promises about the future. For a brief moment it seemed like anything was possible, but as we'll soon see, the story didn't end there, and the fallout from Malaysia's decision to walk away would be felt on both sides of the Pacific. Malaysia's legal argument is, well, devastating. The United States Supreme Court ruled on February 20, 2026, that Trump's global tariffs were unconstitutional. Malaysia's logic here is brutally simple. If the threat that forced them to sign was illegal, then the agreement signed under that threat is, honestly, worthless. Trump had warned that any country trying this so-called trick would face, in his words, much higher tariffs, but Malaysia called his bluff anyway. Then came the furious backpedal. In the span of just a single day, the entire narrative seemed to shift. The initial announcement, which had sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles and financial markets alike, was suddenly being walked back at a dizzying pace. The Malaysian government, which had appeared so resolute only hours before, now seemed to be scrambling to contain the fallout. Journalists and analysts watched in real time as officials began to change their tune, and the story that had dominated headlines was now being quietly, almost desperately, revised. Within just 24 hours, Malaysia's trade ministry claimed the minister had misspoken. The official explanation was that there had been a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, perhaps even a translation error. The spokesperson, standing before a sea of flashing cameras and microphones, insisted that Malaysia's position had not changed, and that the earlier remarks were not meant to signal any policy shift. The press conference was tense, with reporters pressing for clarity, but the answers remained vague and carefully worded. It was clear that the government was eager to put the genie back in the bottle to restore a sense of normalcy and stability. No formal cancellation was ever sent. Despite the public statements, there was no official documentation, no signed letter, no diplomatic cable dispatched to reverse the earlier announcement. Behind the scenes, officials seemed to be in damage control mode, trying to avoid leaving a paper trail that could be used against them later. The absence of any formal communication only deepened the mystery, fueling speculation about what was really happening inside the corridors of power. Was this a genuine mistake, or was something more complicated unfolding behind the scenes? So what happened behind closed doors? According to insiders, the hours following the initial announcement were marked by frantic phone calls, emergency meetings, and high-level consultations. Senior officials huddled in private rooms, weighing the risks and consequences of their next move. International advisors were brought in, and legal teams pored over trade agreements and diplomatic protocols. The stakes were high, and the pressure was mounting. Every decision was being scrutinized, not just by the Malaysian public, but by powerful actors around the world. Washington reminded Kuala Lumpur about new Section 301 investigations targeting 60 countries, including Malaysia. The message from the United States was unmistakable. Malaysia's actions were being watched, and any deviation from the expected path could have serious consequences. The Section 301 investigations, which allow the U.S. to impose trade penalties on countries it believes are engaging in unfair practices, were a powerful tool. For Malaysia, the threat of being singled out in such a high-profile investigation was enough to send alarm bells ringing throughout the government. America's message was, pretty clear. Defy us, and pay the price. The warning was not just about trade, it was about the broader relationship between the two countries, and the potential costs of stepping out of line. For Malaysia, the choice was stark. Risk economic retaliation and diplomatic isolation, or find a way to quietly reverse course. In the end, the furious backpedal was not just about saving face, it was about survival in a world where the stakes are higher than ever, and every move is watched by powerful eyes. The bottom line is this: Malaysia, for a brief but unforgettable moment, showed the world what true defiance looks like. In a world where smaller nations often feel compelled to bow to the will of global superpowers, Malaysia's stance was a breath of fresh air. It was a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming pressure, a nation can choose to stand tall, to assert its own values, and to make its voice heard on the international stage. The images of Malaysian leaders standing firm, the flag waving proudly against the city skyline, and the people watching anxiously as events unfolded. These are moments that will be remembered for years to come. But as quickly as the storm began, it seemed to pass. Malaysia, after making its point, quietly retreated from the spotlight. Some might see this as a sign of weakness, but in reality, the message had already been sent loud and clear. The world was watching, and the world took note. The era of blind submission, where smaller countries simply follow orders from the most powerful nations, may actually be coming to an end. Malaysia's actions have sparked conversations not just in Southeast Asia, but across the globe, about what it means to be truly independent in today's interconnected world. Now, it's up to us, the people, to keep this conversation alive. The power of information is in your hands. When you share this video with your family, your friends, your colleagues, and everyone you know, you're not just spreading news, you're helping to spark critical discussions, to challenge old assumptions, and to encourage others to think for themselves. Imagine the impact if every person who watched this video took a moment to share it with just a few others. The ripple effect could be enormous, reaching far beyond our immediate circles and inspiring people in every corner of the world to pay attention, to ask questions, and to demand accountability from those in power. So don't let this moment pass by unnoticed. Make sure you share it on all your WhatsApp groups, your Facebook groups, and every social media platform you use. Whether it's a family group chat, a community page, or a professional network, your voice matters. Every time you hit that share button, you're amplifying a message that needs to be heard. You're helping to ensure that important stories like this one don't get buried under the noise of everyday life. Instead, you're giving them the spotlight they deserve, and you're empowering others to join the conversation. And don't forget about Telegram groups. These are some of the most powerful tools for keeping everyone informed and engaged. Whether you're part of a small circle of close friends or a massive public group, sharing this video on Telegram can help it reach audiences who might otherwise miss out. In today's digital age, information travels at the speed of light, and you have the power to be a part of that movement. By sharing, you're not just passing along a video, you're participating in a global conversation, one that has the potential to shape opinions, influence decisions, and even change the course of history. And while you're at it, while you're hitting that share button and spreading the word, don't forget to subscribe to this channel right now. Subscribing is the best way to make sure you never miss an update, never miss a story that matters, and never miss a chance to be part of something bigger than yourself. When you subscribe, you're joining a community of people who care about the truth, who value independent journalism, and who want to stay informed about the issues that shape our world. Plus, it's quick, it's easy, and it makes a real difference in helping us continue to bring you the stories that matter most. So go ahead, just hit the red button. It's right there, waiting for you. Join us, stay informed, and help us keep the conversation going. Together we can make a difference. One share, one subscription, and one informed voice at a time. Thank you for watching, for caring, and for being part of this journey. The story doesn't end here. In fact, it's just beginning, and you're a crucial part of what comes next.